I get it. You're staring at the upgrades section on your laptop, feeling the itch to finally own a machine that can actually keep up with the newest releases. But you also remember the nightmare of splurging on a desktop that ends up collecting dust because it either underdelivers or turns out to be a pain to fit into your space. I've been there, and I've spent a few evenings scrolling through forums, watching build log videos, and even pulling apart a couple of older rigs just to see what really matters when you're deciding whether to drop a few $100s on a pre-built gaming tower. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So, let's talk about the msi Aegis ZS2. It's marketed as a plug-and-play solution that promises a high-end CPU, a next-gen GPU, and all the cooling you need to run demanding titles at 144 Hz or higher. The headline specs sound impressive on paper, but the real question is, does that hardware translate into a smoother experience for the kind of gamer who streams, jumps between VR and traditional titles, and maybe even dabbles in a bit of content creation on the side? First off, who actually benefits from a machine like this? If you're the type of player who runs titles like Cyberpunk 2077, Microsoft Flight Simulator, or the latest AAA releases at ultra settings, and you also want the freedom to dip into VR without constantly worrying about thermal throttling, the Aegis ZS2 hits a sweet spot. The Ryzen 9 9900X is an 8-core, 16-thread powerhouse that still holds its own in modern titles, especially when paired with the RTX 5070 Ti. In my research, I saw that the GPU's ray tracing cores handle DLSS-enhanced visuals without choking frame rates, which means you can actually enjoy those glossy reflections in games like Horizon Forbidden West without dropping below 60 frames per second. If you're a streamer who uses OBS or similar software, the extra cores give you headroom to encode video while the game runs, reducing that dreaded "my stream is lagging while my game is fine" moment. On the flip side, if you're primarily a casual player who sticks to indie games, older esports titles, or you mainly game at 1080p with medium settings, you're probably paying for performance you'll never fully tap. The price tag of a pre-built like the Aegis ZS2 sits in the higher-end bracket, and the value proposition narrows considerably if you don't need that raw horsepower. In that case, a more modest build with a Ryzen 5 or even an Intel i5 paired with a RTX 3060 could save you a few $100 while still delivering flawless performance for your library. Now, let's get into the practical strengths. The first thing I noticed in the videos and user photos is the liquid cooling loop. MSI has integrated a closed-loop system that keeps the Ryzen chip well under its thermal ceiling even when you push the clock speed in demanding benchmarks. That translates to quieter operation during long gaming marathons. You won't be constantly reminded that a pump is working overtime. The cooling also means you can maintain boost clocks longer, which is a real benefit in games that have bursty CPU demands, like open-world titles that load new assets on the fly. Another solid point is the storage layout. With a 2 TB NVMe drive already installed, you get a massive amount of fast storage out of the box. That's a huge convenience if you're juggling multiple large games, because the load times are consistently sub-second, and you don't have to worry about a second, slower SSD or a mechanical HDD bottleneck. For content creators, that space is also handy for raw video footage or 4K textures without immediately needing external drives. Connectivity is where the Aegis ZS2 quietly shines. Wi-Fi 6E and a solid Ethernet port mean you won't be battling a flaky wireless signal when you're streaming or playing competitive shooters where latency matters. The front I/O panel includes a few USB-C ports, which is a nice nod to newer peripherals, though you'll still need a couple of USB-A connections for older controllers or headsets. Overall, the day-to-day usability feels thoughtful, and the machine is ready to sit on a desk or a small entertainment center without needing extra accessories. Of course, there are some trade-offs you should be aware of before you click Add to Cart. The design is intentionally minimalistic, which means the chassis doesn't have the flashy RGB lighting that some gamers love. If you're someone who likes your rig to double as a visual centerpiece, you'll find the aesthetic a bit plain. That's not a functional drawback, but it's a factor that can affect your satisfaction. More importantly, The power supply is sized just enough for the components, but it leaves little headroom if you ever want to upgrade the GPU to an RTX 6080 Ti or add another storage drive. The unit ships with a 750W PSU, which is fine for the RTX 5070 Ti, but you'll hit the limit quickly if you decide to push beyond the current configuration. This makes future-proofing a consideration. The Aegis ZS2 is great for today's games, but you'll have to plan any major upgrades carefully.